Hello, everyone. This is Keith with the Farm to Table Direct Show. And to the, what are you on the left of me? Is my brother Ryan. And
Hey,
we've got an exciting show tonight. Of course, this is our ongoing series called the Speaker Series, to where we give you a sneak peek into what you can expect at the Oklahoma Homestead Rendezvous, and it's going to be on the topics that these speakers will be covering there. But we can't give you everything, but we're going to do our best to give you a pretty good sample of what you can expect there. Now, I want to remind everybody that this is a live chat event. So if you've got a question or you've got a comment, put it in the chat on the side, and whenever we get an opportunity, we will be talking to you with that and showing it up here. And it's your chance to ask the experts
sure.
whatever question that you may have to have on this. So anyway, we want to thank everybody for coming into the show. And
Yeah, I'm glad you're here.
yeah, and we thank you for your participation in all of this, because it really helps us to get the word out, helps us to network with everybody and get the community started. So tonight's speakers, I'm just going to tell you guys that a little bit about them. They were answering God's call. And in order to do so, they had to literally leave a great paying job and accept about half of the pay. And they moved out of near Oklahoma City out into the windy western part of Oklahoma. Now, we're curious about, what did they do in order to survive and to adjust from the salary that they had then to what they're living on now, and the struggles that they encountered along the way. And so we're going to be talking about the little homestead, or the money saving hacks on the homestead. And with that, I would like to welcome both David and Holly to the show.
Hey,
Guys,
welcome in.
thank you
Yeah.
so much for having us.
Right. And so this is David and Holly with Glory Hills Homestead. And if you guys haven't, go out and check out their channel, subscribe to them, and, grow along with them and follow them on the journey. And I think tonight is going to be a very interesting trip along with them, about their story and how they got here. And so with that being said, I'm just going to kind of ask you guys to talk to me a little bit about God's calling.
Well, so it all kind of started back in around August of 2021. We kind of were doing the urban homesteading thing in Edmond, Oklahoma, and we had a kind of a corner neighborhood lot, but it was a small parcel of land, just a tiny little neighborhood corner. And so we did what we could with what we had there, and we had some garden beds and some chickens. But God ultimately just put it on our heart that He had bigger things for us. And, we had no idea what that looked like. The house that we bought in Edmond, we had planned on living there and raising our family there. But God just put the prompting on our heart that, hey, this isn't your forever, and I have something coming for you. So start looking for it. And so that's kind of what we did on David's days off. We would load up in the car and we would just take off driving. We knew wherever we were going to go, he needed to have a job there. And so he was applying at different areas. And we just went all over Oklahoma driving until we got confirmations of where we were supposed to be. So you want to talk about what that looked like?
So well, we're gonna get into a little bit about that move that you guys made and looking for your property. But I want to dig a little deeper into the God aspect of it,
yes.
And the calling aspect. When you say that there was a calling there, was there something in particular that was on your heart that made you think, was it, like, for example, was it the children's education? Was it other things? What can you say about that?
I think a huge chunk of it is he put on our hearts to do a lot with animals. And so we really had the big desire to have dairy cows and have larger livestock animals, maybe some goats and things like that. And obviously you can't do that in the neighborhood beyond some hens. You can't even have a rooster where we were.
Being more self-sufficient.
Yeah.
You could only do so much with 9 chickens and so many garden beds, and that's not going to sustain you for years and years, or even a year if something were to happen. So
Right.
I think we really wanted to dial in on how to support our family and not depend on the grocery stores to feed our family. And, that is gardening, but it's also largely with animal husbandry. And so we really just had the deep desire to want to put the sustainability of our family and our kids into something that we can produce on our land and surrounding areas from our land and things like that. So.
Right. So ask you a little bit about the job that you left and some of the sacrifices that you guys had to make just to, to branch out and, to follow God's calling and take that leap of faith. Tell us a little bit about that.
So I left. My wife has been a stay-at-home mom. She's taking care of the kids. That's her job, and that's phenomenal because I couldn't do that. I couldn't be a stay-at-home dad. But I've had a calling all my life to be a police officer and in law enforcement to help others. So what the job I was doing in Edmond was I was working with OU Edmond and working in the healthcare industry, which was making quite a lot of money on the security aspect. It was an extra job I was doing, as well as I worked with Integris Health, and also reserved for a police department at that time. Which again, you're making about $60,000 a year, working 3 days a week for a hospital system.
So he also had a lot of off days.
Yeah, I had a lot of off days. That's where we loaded up in the car and we'd go drive around and look at other places.
Right. So, whenever you guys did that, I think in our previous conversation that you guys literally had to begin by living on almost half of what you guys had previously earned.
Yeah.
And I can't imagine the struggles, and we're about to get into that. Now, take us along the journey about how you guys, once you answered the call, you made the decision, you're going to take the leap, and you're looking for the house.
Yeah.
And the land. Tell me a little about that.
So we were driving to Western Oklahoma one day, and kind of one of the biggest first confirmations was he applied for Blaine County Sheriff's Department.
Well, we're supposed to say that, but yes, I applied for a sheriff's department over in Western Oklahoma. But before I did that, I applied for a city out here in Western Oklahoma, and a scuffle ended up pursuing, and I ended up taking a guy into custody while I was doing my interview. So that's kind of like a weird deal. So yeah, it all just fell into place.
So that was one of the days where we kind of loaded up and went to just look for something. He put in his application there. I'm in the car with the boys, and I look up, and David is helping an officer, cuff somebody who needed to be cuffed.
Yeah.
And at that point, I just felt this huge, just kind of a knowing from the Holy Spirit of like, whatever just happened, that was a big milestone moment. And so that was kind of the first little piece into the huge puzzle of like, hey, this is like where you're supposed to be. And so after that, we, with like hardly any money in the bank account, we went to go, I just felt like we were supposed to go celebrate because, I don't know, I just had a feeling like God told me like, hey, this is the start of you finding your place. We still didn't have a house or anything at that time. And so we went to a restaurant. We're like, we feel like we should just celebrate because we know that represented something great that was about to come. So we went to, where was that?
It's Foggy Bottoms.
They don't have it
that
anymore.
So
it was a restaurant called Foggy Bottoms at a state park. And while we were there, we were kind of just ordering things that weren't tons of money because we didn't really know how much we had in our account at that time. We were also having car problems and had just dumped like $6,000 into our car.
Yeah.
And so while we were ordering and stuff, there was a super sweet young old man behind us. We just got into a little conversation with him. And by the time we left, the waitress came up and said, hey, just wanted to let you guys know that your meal is covered today. that old man bought your mail for you. And at that time, I instantly, just with 100% knowledge, God just spoke to me and said, here you will find my provision. And so I just about started falling off on the floor crying, because I'm like, oh my gosh, this is it. Like, we've been looking and this is the spot. And so I told that to David, and we went home. He got a call that was very promising when it came to employment out in that area.
Got called that night saying, hey, we have interviews tomorrow. I'll send you over the application. So, yeah.
And so God just really confirmed it from the beginning that out here, this is where his provision is meant for us. So that was super awesome. And then from that point on, we got on Zillow and just spent a lot of time looking at places. I think we thought about buying some land, and we found a place that we were looking to build. However, it was almost kind of going into winter time, and we really didn't want to do a big build, during winter. And so we kept looking a little bit, found the perfect house, went to go see it, and it was a huge fixer-upper. So the first time we went in to see it, it really was a bit overwhelming because there was a lot to do. And so we loved it, but it was still a little daunting. So we went home, thought on it for a few days, and God just kept putting that house in our hearts. And eventually we kind of started to view it as like what we could make it into, and sought for how he wanted us to build it versus how it sat there in that time. And so we kind of started to see things for how it could be, not necessarily just how it was in that moment. So we went back and saw it again and knew exactly that's where God wanted us. That house had sat vacant on the market for over a year. And mind you, this is in 2021, where there was the big housing boom where everyone was buying houses in Oklahoma without, even seeing things over asking, with cash over asking price. So the fact that that house and that land had sat there for over a year, that was even, confirmation of just God saying, hey, I've been reserving this place for you. And so we put in an offer, and eventually got accepted to a price that was the price that God told us to put in for. So we asked for well below the asking price. Actually, I'll go ahead and share that story too, because it's another cool thing that God did. We didn't have a house, set in stone, but we kind of knew we were trying to get that house. And so I was up packing dishes in our current house because I knew we were just going to move kind of shortly. And it was about 3 a.m, and God I remember so distinctly packing the dishes, a plate for a box, and God said 115. And I'm like, okay, what about 115? And he said, 115, if you get accepted at that price, it is my will for you to have this house. And that was pretty far below what they had it listed at. And so I told David the next morning and told the realtors, and she was like, are you sure? Like,
she
that
was super skeptical about
she's like, that might offend them. That might kind of come off as offensive. I'm like, we'll either know or we won't know, because God gave me clear direction, And so we put in at 115. They thought about it for about a day, and they did accept it 115. And so that was another huge confirmation of that this is exactly where God wanted us. That house was meant for us. And little did we know that promise that he made to us that night would be something that we kind of had to hold on to through some challenges ahead to get to that house. So.
Right. So although God was leading you into what he wanted you to have, it wasn't without struggles. There was no promise from him that you would not have circumstances that came up. And did you guys have any other challenges about securing that property?
Yes. So mind you, this whole time, again, from August till about December, when we ended up closing on that house, I was making the commute to the sheriff's office where I was working, which is about an hour to an hour and 45 minutes drive from our house in Edmond.
Just one way.
On top of 12-hour shifts. It was a lot. So we ended up closing on our house in Edmond. We'll get to your question. We ended up closing on our house in Edmond December,
I think 3rd.
3rd. The night before we closed on our house, we were told that this house that
The new
God,
house.
yeah, the new house that God said, hey, this is your house. This is the house that I provided for you. The owner said, yeah, we're not going to do the repairs for you to get the loan to get this house. So it's going to fall through.
Oh.
So it was supposed to be a back-to-back closing, and
Yeah.
about 12 hours prior to closing, here we are with two little babies. We're packing up the last few boxes, and we're learning, hey, you don't know where you're going to be sleeping tomorrow night. And so that was just, I remember that we just looked at each other, and we were too tired to even like cry. We were just like, what are we going to do? We had no idea what to do. And so we asked if we could postpone the closing for the house we were currently in, and they were not able to do that. So we had to just get up at, 7:30 that morning. We actually loaded the U-Haul all through the night. There was no sleeping.
Yeah.
But we, still had to go to closing and sign away our home. And we had a U-Haul full of our goods. And we were like, we just planned that we were going to go buy this beautiful, cute little farmhouse. We go sell our house. We have to sign away our house. And in our minds, that house was no longer an option because we were told it wasn't. And I was so confused because I just remember thinking, God, you said the house is for us, and so it was a hard point between like keeping your faith and knowing his promise is true and he's going to, hold his word on that because God's word doesn't return void. And then also like, but what do we do right now?
Yeah.
It felt really hopeless, even though you still had some hope to hold on to. So thankfully we had a 16-foot travel trailer, just a little tiny pull behind. And so the very first night we went and stayed in a hotel just so we could kind of figure out a plan. We had to find a sitter for our chickens. And from that point we went and tried to find a rent house. The rent house fell through, and so we had our trailer and we went and found a kind of a farmer who had a wind turbine farm, and he let us go park out there. And so we spent some very cold winter nights living on the wind turbine farm in our trailer. Again, we were looking for options because we didn't know where we were going, but part of us also kind of didn't want to look for options because we knew somehow God was going to put it all together. And so we were trying to take care of our family, but also just wait on God's timing because we knew that he was still going to make it happen somehow, even though it felt hopeless in that moment.
Well, there was one cold night, I know, and the pipes broke and in the travel trailer that we had. And so,
because it was well below freezing.
Yeah. And so we ended up starting to live out of hotels as well as, again, have all of our stuff packed in this travel trailer. So
the money that we did make from selling our current home was quickly dwindled from living in hotels, every few nights. That got very expensive. We were having to pay for a U-Haul for about a week. That got really expensive. Also, we were all very badly sick. Right after we moved, we all came down with the flu. We're trying to potty train our toddler. We have two little boys. We're living in a travel trailer. We're struggling to breathe. It's freezing. Like, it was just not a good time.
Yeah.
But we still felt like, I know God's going to make this happen somehow.
So 2 weeks until the end of December, or more like a week before the end of December, the owners reached out to me on my cell phone, absent the realtors, and they said that, hey, we're willing to make those repairs. And again, it's just minor repairs like
painting.
The couple doors need painted and scratched off the flaking paint, and that's really it. But we're going to make the repairs, and then we'll have you guys in there hopefully by the end of December. And so
and at that point we were out of money for hotel rooms. Our trailer was broken. And another just awesome God moment is he provided a complete stranger that we had never met before. She reached out and offered for us to live out of her pool house, and just however long it took until our house deal closed.
And that's where we spent Christmas.
We spent Christmas in a lady's pool house. It didn't have a heater, but we had a space heater, and we went to our storage and got our little tiny Christmas tree out. We put up some lights and made a paper garland, and we had actually a really great Christmas.
That was going to be a very memorable one.
Yes. Yeah. And it was kind of funny because David, that was his first Christmas he had ever had with us since having children, because normally law enforcement has to work holidays. And that was the first Christmas he's ever had with us since having kids. And so We were sick as dogs. We were cold, but it was still so sweet because it was like our first Christmas together as a family, and so we still really enjoyed it.
That is an amazing story. And bro, I don't know about you, but how many homesteaders in transition have a very similar story that includes travel trailers?
You know, it's actually rather amazing the number of people that, like I said, they either intentionally moved to one while
Yep.
they were doing something,
Mhm.
or circumstances put them there. And you know, I
Right.
haven't begun to homestead yet, but yeah, I had my few months there of living in a travel trailer and heading into 0-degree weather, and yeah, it's not the travel trailer wasn't bad, but the cold, and yeah, that was not happy. Burnt through a ton of propane, but yeah,
Right.
but it is pretty common. And yeah, Chris, we see your comment because they just got moved out of their camper into a tiny cabin. So
Yeah, I told you.
yeah, Chris Thompson.
And we've got other, people that we know
Yeah.
who are still currently in it years later and
Oh,
still
yeah.
working their way to the home,
Certainly, yeah, Lorraine and Chris are,
right.
they've been there. They've got all kinds of stuff, and they're working on all this other structure.
Mhm.
Uh, that is
Right.
before they ever get to their house, and so it's like
Yeah.
but
So that was a really, really touching story. And I think that you ended it appropriately with having probably one of your most memorable Christmases. But at this point, I want to kind of take it over into once you guys have gotten into the property, now it's time to start making a homestead out of it and bring the animals. And can you kind of talk to us about like that first um, couple 3 months getting started there on your new homestead?
I think the first thing we did was have to quickly adjust our mindset to be comfortable with getting uncomfortable, because in the city, we had all the luxuries. If we wanted to go out to a restaurant to eat, we ate out all the time when we lived in Edmond. It was not very healthy, but we did.
Yeah, Whataburger.
Yeah, we had lots
Whataburger.
of. We don't eat there now, but so first thing we had to do was shift our mindset to just know we want this bad enough to sacrifice the luxuries that we used to have in order to get to what we want. It's what we want most versus what we wanted in that moment. And so we had to have the disciplined mindset to say, we're not going to go eat out. We ate lots of potatoes, beans, rice, eggs, just whatever we had available to us is what we ate. We didn't, it kind of helps living in the country because there's no places to there's not a Hobby Lobby to go walk around in.
Yeah.
So kind of just mentally, the first thing we did was just adjust to being comfortable to live within our new means and figure out what that looked like for us. So just buying things that would stretch over a long way of time to feed us, things like that.
So again, we kind of talked about how I was making a lot of money in Edmond. So whenever I came to the sheriff's office, I was making $38,000 a year. So if we're going to $60,000 to $38,000 a year, that's a big change.
yes,
So we had to find a way to substitute the extra $28,000 a year, or what is it, 28?
Don't ask me a math question.
Math, but
yeah.
$20-something thousand a year. And so what we ended up doing was viewing our feed bill more so as a grocery bill, because we knew what we're doing is we are setting ourselves up for success in the future. Right? You're building your Eden, as we say. So you might not. So when you plant a plant, right? You plant a seed in the ground. You are planting it with the hopes of having something in the future, right? And so that's how we viewed this homestead.
Yeah.
So if that answers your question.
Yeah. I mean, y'all guys, I mean, y'all had some chickens and a couple of pigs, right? And that was kind of the start. So, I mean, how do you even get into infrastructure when you're facing that situation that you were facing there?
Okay, before you answer that question,
Oh,
we are going to take a little bit of break to talk about coffee because this is where we're going to get into the meat of having the homestead hacks, bro. Um, before we get into the techniques that they use to make it there, we're just going to take a little break and talk about coffee.
all right. Well, farm to table direct coffee. Are you ready for the freshest cup of coffee you've ever tasted? Well, we offer a welcome to the Farm to Table Direct Coffee, your destination for specialty coffee roasted to perfection. At Farm to Table Direct Coffee, we offer a wide variety of premium coffee beans, and unlike the commodity coffee that is on the shelves at most stores, our beans are handpicked for ripeness, available in several packaging options to suit your needs. The process is simple. Place your order, and our expert roasters get to work. Your coffee is roasted and shipped the very same day, ensuring peak freshness and flavor. I tell you, it couldn't be easier. From placing the order to receiving notifications throughout the process, Farm to Table Direct Coffee keeps you informed every step of the way. For the freshest custom roasted coffee, visit our store at farmtotabledirectcoffee.com. That is farm, the number 2 table, directcoffee.com, and experience the difference that Farm to Table Direct Coffee can make in your morning routine. Farm to Table Direct Coffee. From the farm to your table, the freshest coffee guaranteed.
That
Now,
sounds delicious.
it is pretty good. As a matter of fact, that's what we drink. Me and Ryan
I
and
love
my
it.
nephew, we drink our brand, which means we believe in it, right? So we're going to get into the nut of this, and that's what what the title was about, and that was money saving hacks on the homestead. And so we're about to get into how you guys made adjustments, basically living on almost half of what your income was before, and a lot of work, and a house that needed a lot of repairs.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was
Yeah.
going to chip in. I don't know if if y'all know who Jack Dyer Family Farms. I don't know if y'all know, but anyway, he just chatted in the chat that they went from 120,000 to 40,000.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah, can be done, but man, what a transition!
For sure.
Takes some time to learn the new normal with that financial change like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
So,
But
we're getting into.
this type, go ahead, bro.
I was going to say we're going to get into those techniques, but I mean, uh, some of the ways y'all say, as you began in the beginning, because I mean, I'm sure there's things you've learned over the last several years that you've been there, but there was things in the beginning with like you said, just being able to house the animals that you had and grow that. What was some of the things that you picked up and how y'all managed to do that?
Well, so something that we loved about our house, and this is something that we like to tell people, is even if you have a fixer-upper house that you get, if you can find a place that has pre-existing fencing, that will help you get your animal projects going so much faster because fencing is so expensive and it's just getting more and more expensive, and it also is super time consuming. So we were blessed to have our acreage already barbed wired in, and then we had a few pre-existing areas where we could, pretty quickly buy our 2 first hogs. We had a little place already fenced in for them. And so if you can find a place with pre-existing fencing, even if there's not structures for shelter and stuff, the fencing will really help you get to start your homesteading dreams a lot faster. But so like
There's resources all around you guys. Like whenever it comes to, which I guess I'm probably skipping ahead from one of the questions, but there's resources everywhere around you guys. So if you don't have the fencing, right? There's fence panels that are just sitting on people's farms, and go up and ask them, hey, how much for that fence panel? Because you can go buy it at Tractor Supply or some big box store, but they're going to be expensive.
Full retail price.
Yeah, and you won't be able to. Well, we weren't able to afford it.
Yeah.
You can either do that option or you can go work. So out of all of this, remember there is a trade-off, right? There's time and there's money, and time is money. And if you don't have the money, then you need to invest the time. But both are going to be an investment for your future.
Right.
So,
So we would do things like search on Facebook Marketplace. You can just go to Facebook Marketplace, put in free, and see what pops up. You know, you might find a doghouse that you could turn into a chicken coop. You can find railroad ties. We got lots of those. Telephone poles make great fencing posts. You can find those a lot for free. You can find abandoned barns all the time for free on Facebook, and it just says you have to come, you know, take it down yourself. We've gone to disassemble things like that to go get free wood. There's really just resources everywhere.
So we live in a culture today where, if you're not using it, then just discard it, throw it away. But everything that you use can have another purpose. For instance, who drinks the Folgers coffee cans? Well, you can turn those into
Feed scoops.
Feed scoops, yeah.
Our place had so much coffee cans, and then we still to this day use those for measuring out our feed all the time. So another thing is, like, we were blessed to have one of our shops. The guy who lived there before us was, he did a lot of woodworking, and so he left carpentry, but he left a lot of wood in one of the shops, and so it was all mixed matched and kind of random pieces. But it's really fun to just get creative with whatever you can find and make it into whatever you want. So, you know, if you go to Home Depot and you have a vision in mind, it's pretty easy to find exactly what you need to make it all perfect and symmetrical and all that stuff. But where you have to get creative is whatever you have is what you have to work with. And then finding a way to put all those pieces together to build whatever it is you want to build. I don't know. We like doing that. That's fun to us. It's a little bit of a challenge. We like to build stuff together. We build all of our projects together. And so it's fun to just, we'll kind of do a drawing or we'll talk about it. We'll put a bunch of lumber in a pile and then we look at it and we say, okay, how do we turn this into that? And just find a way to make it work. So that's something fun that we like to do.
You brought up,
Go ahead, Rob.
you just mentioned Home Depot. Now, you were telling us the other day about a hack when it comes to lumber and the box stores. So why don't you share that?
Yes, we always tell people to use the purple lumber. And what that means is you can go to the back of any Home Depot or Lowe's and they have the carts or sometimes even a shelf with the 70% off, sometimes 75, 80% off discount lumber. And what it is just slightly bent, slightly warped, damaged lumber. And we used that to build a lot of our stuff when we first started, because we would just take trips to the city and we would just spend time going from location to location. Sometimes we would call ahead and ask, like, hey, when do you guys have the most of your discount lumber? Or what time do you put it out at? And we would try to get there and plan it so we would get to all the locations at all the right times and just stock up our truck with as much as we could find. Actually, we did the Volvo with a lot of it.
Yeah.
So we would have lumber just hanging out of our car.
A little compact Volvo.
But we would just make trips to the city where we would just go around town, even maybe a few towns, and stock up on the purple lumber. And so a lot of our things, if you watch our videos, a lot of the things that we've built, there's just random purple spray paint on things. And that's the purple discounted lumber that we use.
So like we built a tree house for our two little boys.
For Christmas.
Yeah. And it only cost us like $86 to build this full tree house. Yeah. Because it's all discounted lumber. And it's good lumber. Yeah. It just might be warped a little bit.
But it works for us.
It grew out of that special tree.
Exactly.
we don't mind the purple lumber at all.
Right. So from now on, and I'm driving around and I see it, I'll be thinking about this story you just told me, because I really didn't know that. But I want to say something to you guys that I really admire the spirit, this problem-solving spirit that you guys have, and you pointed out that what I would consider to be a negative in our society of people just being a throwaway society, as you're taking that aspect and you're turning that to your advantage. And can you tell us some of the other things that you have found that when opportunity presents itself?
So for instance, we talk a lot about lumber because a lot of things that we do on the homestead, well, for our homesteading, is involving wood, right? There is other resources you guys can use when it comes to finding resources. Here in Western Oklahoma, and then so I used to travel whenever I was a kid with my family, and so I've seen it all over the United States for that matter. Those houses that are falling down, right? You can reclaim lumber that way as well, and it still is good lumber. It might not be brand spanking new, but it is still will serve the purpose that you need to serve.
Something else that we've done a lot with, this is completely how David has built my milking stanchion, is once you get into your community, if you can find someone, there's lots of farmers, and normally they're kind of older farmers, so they don't like to do this themselves because it's a lot of labor. But they'll have loads of extra trees that need cutting down or that have already fallen, just trees that they need removed. And you can go get those trees, and you can either try to like make your own sawmill with a saw and turning it sideways and all that.
Chainsaw.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Chainsaw. But we've been blessed to find a friend out here with a sawmill that he personally owns. And so if you can find a connection like that, we have used that a ton to go cut down trees, and then use that to take to the sawmill, and we build our stanchion that way. We build some of our chicken coop that way. But just using also what the community has to offer. Then also obviously returning the favor however you can, helping them with other projects of theirs and things like that. So
I know when I first got started, my old tractor wasn't real much, and my neighbor came over several times with his, and my driveway was a disaster. And I had plans laid in. I had a guy coming. He was bringing a dump truck of SB2 to fix the driveway. And my old neighbor next door, knowing I had a need before he ever even talked to me, started pulling dirt off his pond bank and going up and built the base. And then we put the SB2 over it. And so I got a good solid driveway. But all I had to do was he just wanted the diesel back that he burnt, and it was like.
See, and that leads us to a point, man. Community is a lot of what got us to where we are today, and if you're starting a homestead and you don't have a community, then build one. Either go look for one that's already in existence, that's great, but not everywhere has a community that's already built, and they might be looking for you to start that community, because if you go back to like the old homesteading days, right when we started as a country, or during the land runs, the neighbor would come over and help you mend your fence, and you go and return the favor. And that's your community. That's what you're building.
Yeah. And no one out here views anything as like an IOU or you owe me and all this stuff. It literally is just the mindset of how can I help serve? And everyone does that with one another. So everyone just helps everyone succeed, and there's no competition. Everyone's just here to help. And it's a really beautiful thing. I know that's a huge reason God put us out here. Because we never had that community where we came from, and we did look for it, and to some extent we tried to start stuff, but nothing ever stuck, and there just wasn't the like-mindedness where we came from. And so out here it's just been such a blessing to have people that do have things like a sawmill that are willing to help us get to where we want to be and things like that. It's just been a really big blessing.
So again, I really appreciate, again, this is just another illustration to where the homesteading community, being full of like-minded people, come together. And if you don't know an answer to a question, the more you get out, the more you meet other people in your local community, but not just that, but on your social media community. If you don't know the answer to something, somebody I know or somebody that I knows somebody who knows that can help you with those sort of questions. And I'm telling you, you're in very good company here with all of the friends of the Farm to Table Direct show, because we have just such a wonderful community of experts that love to teach. And that's I just had to say that, because you touched on something that's really near and dear to our hearts, and that's the community aspect of things. And so let's move a little bit into the animals and how you kind of tried to save money and how you grew your animal population over time.
Well,
So, of course, we have chickens, right? Chickens are, they say that's the entry to homesteading.
That's right.
It was,
It was for us, for sure.
So, with chickens, you got chicken mass. So your chicken flock starts to grow, and then you have more eggs than you can imagine. Well, you can either sell those eggs, or if those eggs go bad, what are you going to do with them? Well, again, repurposing the things, and don't just throw them away. You can either put them into your garden, or you can use it for pigs. So we have pigs that we feed our chicken eggs, not necessarily like the bad, spoiled, stinky eggs.
They never get that.
They
far.
never get that far. So that, and then you also have cows, dairy cows, and I'll let her talk about that because that's kind of her area of expertise.
Yeah, so first we started with chicken math, came here with 9 very quickly. At any given time, we normally have over 200 chickens. Then we graduated to calculus, which I was very excited about, and got our first bottle calf when we first moved here. That bottle calf, we were brand new, didn't know what to look for. Turned out that calf that we bought was a sick calf.
Drove all the way down to Texas to get it.
Yeah. Don't do what we did there. And brought it home, spent a whole bunch of money on vet bills, had it for a week, and it died. That was our first experience into getting a cow. From then we had my cow now that I milk, Honey. We saw her on a Facebook listing, and the guy knew nothing about her. He got her from somebody else. We didn't know if she was A2 or anything really about her. We didn't even know if she was a twin with a bull, which for those that don't know, if you get a cow that came out with a twin and there was a girl and a boy, so a heifer and a bull, normally the heifer is sterile. And so even, not knowing the history on that, we still just felt like, hey, this is a great deal. She's really cute. Let's get her. So we got her for $500 when she was 10 months old, with just the hope of having her to be our milk cow one day. And that was in early 2022 when we got her. I think that was about June of 2022. And this February is when she calved for the first time. And so that was when we originally thought that we were going to have to wait that long. And then going back to just God pouring out provision over our lives, there's been so many testimonies to his provision since we have been here. I mean, always, but he really has showed off since we've been here.
For instance, those first 2 pigs, so we've bought 2 pigs, but the first 2 pigs, we'll rewind a little bit further back. Remember how we said there was a piece of property that we were looking at buying, and we were going to put a little travel trailer on, and we were going to build a barn-dominium and build it. It was 80 acres. We found that big piece of property that was just perfect, right? It ended up falling through because
we didn't actually try to get it.
He did.
No.
Well, he wanted an astronomical price for it, and I'm still friends with him today. He's a very good guy, but he ended up giving us 2 pigs. He's like, man, I got to get rid of 2 pigs, so you can have them. They're yours.
But that was cool because even, when we were looking for that property for a second, when we thought about building, that guy, God still used as a friendship that we're still great friends with him today. We love his family and going to see him and stuff, but he even blessed us once we got into this new house with our first pigs.
Yeah.
But so back to the cows, we got Honey, my painted Jersey, and we thought we were just going to have to wait until this year to have milk. But another thing that God did that was awesome is I get on Facebook one day, and a wonderful man named Sam that we had never met before messaged me and said, hey, I've been following you guys on Facebook, and I feel like God wanted me to reach out to you guys and offer you this cow that I have that she's about to calve. And she's registerable, and she has a registerable calf. She's a mini Jersey. She's A2, and she's going to calve in 2 months. Do you want her? And I'm like, and I totally thought it was fake because that sounds obviously way too good to be true. He doesn't know us. So we're like, sure. And we talked about it. And so we planned for him to deliver her. And we were like, well, can we pay you for delivery? And he's like, if I accepted anything from you, then it wouldn't really truly be a gift. And I know this is where God told me to give this cow to you guys. Now that cow was unhandled, and so I had to.
So what that means, for those who don't know, that means she's never been milked. She will kick.
She was raised unhandled on an Angus pasture, but she still was a mini Jersey. And so me being new into milking at that time, had to learn how to train an untamed cow to be a milk cow. So that was a fun experience, but I did it, and she ended up being a great milk cow. I got lots of kicks, lots of bruises, but we did it. And so even that, like, that got to jumpstart our passion into having milk cows and stuff so much sooner, because we were obedient to God's calling, and He literally blessed us with what would have cost like $4,200. Mini jerseys are so expensive because there is a huge market for them, especially right now in the homesteading community. It's a great first family cow. And so things like that, it was just awesome that we got to have a milk cow last year, which we didn't even plan on. And now this year, my cow Honey is the one who calved, and she's in milk. And so we got to even start the milking process a year sooner than what we had anticipated on, because God just made it happen for us that way.
Right. So you've got the milk cow.
Yeah.
And miracles happen there. And one of the things I want to say about that is, you know, if you're afraid and you overanalyze getting out into, you know, to fulfill your calling or fulfill your dream, you know, you just have to get started. And once you get started, day after day, things will pop up and things will happen. And you guys are no exception to that rule. And your life is actually an example of exactly what I'm talking about here. And now, once you got the milk, how are you using the milk on the farm to save money?
That's been a really fun part. So our first cow, we were even able to do this because she would give us 1.5 gallons a day, which is a lot for, you know, a family of 4 with 2 young kids.
Yeah.
Even that's a lot. And so we would, you know, a lot of people will like soak their feed for chickens and for their pigs with water. Well, we soak everything that we feed in milk, and we just have kind of been doing that the last 2 years. And so when we have a huge batch of meat birds, we can get their feed, which we sometimes make ourselves. That's another way that we save money. But we'll get their feed and we soak the feed in the milk. And so that milk largely provides the protein and fats, really important fats to our pigs. Our greasy chickens last year, it did great with them. They were the healthiest looking chickens. The Cornish were all great. And so we use that milk to feed really everything else. I'll even give it to my livestock guardian dog. A great way that it saved us money this year is we had a mama goat that rejected triplets, and formula gets really expensive. And you know, it's even expensive to buy milk from a store, even the cheap stuff. So my cow was able to produce enough milk for our family and enough to bottle feed 3 goat babies that were rejected. And we still had plenty left over. So she was able to feed the hogs, the chickens, and we have a lot of chickens. It costs a lot of money to feed the amount of chickens that we have. But
Over 200 chickens. We have a small chicken farm as well.
Oh, wow.
we're trying to downsize on the chickens a little bit right now. But, you know, just you're talking bottle feeding triplets every 2 hours for the first little bit, and then it's 4 hours and 6 hours. That's a lot of milk. And so even her helping out in that way just saved us a ton of money, because even if we have a calf that was rejected from a different mom or things like that, she was really able, just having her milk is able to help provide for our family in a lot of ways. We're able to use it for butter for our family. And, you know, if I want a coffee, I have cream always on tap, which is wonderful.
Yeah.
We were talking about that earlier today, straight from the cow. You know?
I'm
That's
spoiled.
right. Yeah.
It's not same day milk. I'm a little spoiled on it now.
So really our cows become one of the baselines of feeding everything else, including ourselves, on the homestead. Which it's just cool to see how everything comes in together.
So we really try to have all of our animals help feed the other animals in one way or another. So even our chicken eggs, our livestock guardian dog, we give her a raw food diet, and so she gets an egg in the morning and an egg in the night with her feeding schedule. And so our chickens help feed our dog, our cows feed our pigs and our chickens, and really, like, even pig meat that are not preferable cuts that we want and stuff, we can give to our dog. We just kind of have everything to where it all is symbiotic with one another, and it really does help save a lot of money doing it that way.
You asked about, you mentioned having the triplet goats now, so I'm assuming y'all also have goats on the.
Yeah, we have some Nigerian dwarfs and a Nubian. We just got our first Nubian full-size goat like What was that, like 3 months ago?
Are y'all growing those for more for meat or milk or both?
Well,
So when we first got our animals, it started chickens, pigs, then we got goats, because when we got my cow Honey, we still thought we wouldn't have milk until this year. And so we thought, well, we'll get goats and start some kind of milk a little bit sooner. And then we were given Gracie, our mini Jersey. And so we kind of just, the goats were at first intended to be for milk, but then we were given a whole cow. When you have a whole cow, you don't really need the goats, if I'm being honest. And so they kind of just become pets a little bit. And so we'll sell the babies. Unfortunately, that one that had triplets, she had some complications with her kidding. It was pretty traumatic.
She had the weirdest thing. So we took her to the vet, or Holly took her to the vet. I was working.
It was like 5 weeks after.
And the vet goes, "This is something I've only learned about in medical school or in vet school." Yeah, they teach these. It's where like the
uterus had an inside infection, open wound that just kept filling with fluids.
Yeah, it kind of closed in on itself and got an infection. So
basically, she had a really, really traumatic, very rare instance, and unfortunately, we had to put that mom down because she was in a whole lot of pain and she rejected her babies. But I did milk her because she rejected her babies. You know, you still have to get the milk out. So I did milk her for about 5 weeks. But
and I had brought that up because Dakota from Old Pecan Homestead is on the chat and on our side, and he had because they have a lot of goats, and he said that that they're a little more flexible. So for people who are maybe getting started versus learning a Jersey cow.
Yeah, and so that was our plan, is to kind of start with dairy goats while we were waiting on the age for our cow to get old enough to breed. And then so God had other plans. We jumped into cows a lot sooner than what we had intended.
Now you told us another really neat trick about feeding your animals on a lower price, something to do with feed mills and stuff.
Yeah.
So we'll share that.
Right.
One thing that we started taking advantage of is clean outs. So whenever it's harvest time for like wheat, or right now it's going into deer season. So a lot of these feed mills, like we're out where we are, is Wheeler Brothers. There's a lot of Wheeler Brothers around here. They will clean off the corn, because again, deer hunters love their corn, right? They'll clean out the corn, and whenever they harvest it, there's a lot of other things in that field. So there'll be like milo, that's another grain that's generally in the field, or wheat, and stuff of that nature. So that all gets filtered out, and that's where you get the corn. So those filterings are corn clean out, or just clean out whatsoever. Yeah, wheat. It's any kind of thing that the crop is going around. So one cool thing is that is significantly cheaper. For instance, kind of comparison, if you go buy a bag of corn, cracked corn from Tractor Supply right now is about $14, and anywhere between $14 to $16. Okay, and that's for a 50-pound bag. For a bag of corn clean out, again, you have the oats, milo.
Sometimes it is just corn, but sometimes there's other stuff added in. That's one thing, is you don't totally know what you're getting, but it's always a good value.
It is. It's $9 for a 120-pound bag.
Wow.
So significantly cheaper, as well as you get a whole lot more.
And so a lot of people don't know that that's even a thing. It took us a long time to learn, but you can just go to grain mills and say, hey, do you guys ever have clean outs? And normally there is a few people that kind of know about it, and they're the first people that they call whenever they get some. So they'll have some clean out, and they'll call people who are kind of on the list ready to come pick it up. So we have some places near where we live, and anytime they have corn clean out ready, they know to just call us and we'll come get a whole truckload of it. But so our pigs specifically are largely fed on whatever the corn clean out is, soaked in our milk. And so it's really, really affordable for us to feed out our pigs that way.
I think that's an amazing hack, and we've got a question over here in chat that's from Chris Thompson from the Oklahoma Homestead Rendezvous, the founder, and she says, "Have you ever grown oats and fed chickens fresh oat grass?"
So never intentionally, but we have had, like, sometimes we'll have IBC totes that we cut in half, and they're kind of out in our chicken yard. And we'll throw some grain out there and water it, and we'll leave that tote sitting on top of the grain, and we'll flip it over once it starts growing and let them pick at the fresh grass. We've never done it really in mass or
on a large scale.
Yeah,
so
like
essentially what you're doing, you have the IBC tote, and this kind of goes into another thing. And if you guys don't know what an IBC tote is, like the giant chemical totes, you know what I'm talking about?
You can get food grade ones that hold like fish oil. We always look for the food grade ones.
Those, whenever you flip it over on an area that you plant, it essentially makes its own little microclimate.
Little greenhouse.
And it makes a little greenhouse. So you'll have a lot of vegetation and stuff of that nature grow up at a significantly higher rate than if it was just exposed to normal sunlight or something of that nature, all the elements.
And again, something that we struggle with a lot where we live is the wind. And so I use those IBC totes. We don't have a greenhouse right now, but I use tons. We just have a whole pile of cut in half IBC totes. And I use those when I start our seeds of any kind. I flip those on top and it creates a little greenhouse and it keeps the wind off. And then I just lift it up and water them and put it back down. And it really does a great job at acting as a mini greenhouse. So we'll do that sometimes out in the chicken yard to give them some fresh grass because they clean it out pretty fast.
Yeah. So folks,
that's the tote. I've never thought about that.
Right. That's the first I've heard of it. But now, folks, they have given us an awful lot of little hacks here that are really good advice. I don't want to give away everything because they're going to be speakers at the Oklahoma Homestead Rendezvous, but I would be completely amiss if I did not bring up the faith aspect of what you guys do. And I'm assuming that Glory Hills probably got its name specifically for that, and I want to hear a little bit about the the faith aspect and how that guides you guys in your farming decisions and homesteading decisions.
Yeah, so I'm glad you brought that up. So how we got our name, Glory Hills Homestead, is while we were kind of cleaning out one of our shops that came with the property, we were uncovering some dirt that was covering up the edge of one of our buildings. And as we scrape away the dirt, there's writing in the pavement that says built and dedicated to the glory of God. And in that moment, I was like, David, we got to use this somehow for like our homestead name. We had been thinking about what are we going to name our homestead? And so I was like, oh my gosh, everything we do here is supposed to be for the glory of God. And so we come up with the name Glory Hills Homestead, and it really has just been the cornerstone of the mindset and how we do the tedious everyday tasks. When it's great, when it's really hard, when everything feels like it's going wrong, or when things are going great, to try to do it all for the glory of God, because He will use it all for His glory if you have that kingdom mindset that what you're doing is servicing the kingdom of God. And so we've really tried to just use that as a huge inspiration, but also in how we carry ourselves through the day-to-day tasks, whether that's caring for sick animals or growing our crops, our garden. We just really want to be the best stewards we can be of what He's entrusted us with. And that's so important to us. So it's just been really cool to use what we found in the pavement, because I feel like that was written there by the previous people, and they were great people.
Another little fact about this is kind of just a little off topic. So the house that was built, so the lady who owned it previous to us ended up passing away at like 102 years old.
Wow.
Her and her husband built that house from reclaimed lumber of a feed of a grain silo that was knocked down. So it's like,
you're kidding me.
Awesome. It all comes around, and
in our house,
it's awesome.
It was 1930s house, so it's almost 100 years old, built from reclaimed lumber.
Wood.
Yeah, and that house is so sturdy. It is like truly built on the rock in more ways than one. It is a solid house. And you can just, as soon as we walked onto that house, we just knew that we just felt the presence of God there. And so it was so cool that uncovering that, we're like, this was, written in the concrete. We don't know how long ago, but it was also meant for us in this moment. And so it's just super cool that we get to use that, and even the vision that they had before us, to now put it on a larger platform, and just, what they had intended to do, we're able to carry on also, and just keep that going. It's just really, really cool.
Right. So I want to, first of all, I want to thank you guys for, coming on and sharing a fraction of your story. And we're looking forward to learning more at the Oklahoma Homestead Rendezvous, which you guys are going to be a speaker at. And where can people find you, your social media and that?
So we are everywhere at Glory Hills Homestead. We're mostly active on YouTube. So we try to do lots of shorts on there all through the week, and we post a longer video or a vlog type video every Saturday morning on YouTube. We're also on Instagram at Glory Hills Homestead and Facebook. So Instagram, we'll post kind of just random little things throughout the week. That's kind of more my little personal platform that I just kind of like to share some snippets of throughout our day. But YouTube is kind of where we're most consistent on. And then Facebook is a great way if we have any updates on our milk sales or things like that. That's where we post that kind of stuff.
Right. So, Bro, I think we probably need to talk a little bit about the upcoming Oklahoma Homestead Rendezvous and let people know where they can actually hear more about the story of David and Holly, but not only that, get to meet them in person, ask questions in person, and share that journey. Let us know about that.
Absolutely. And yes, because there's still stuff that we had in our questions that I want to know, but for the sake of y'all's time and ours both tonight, we'll save that for the rendezvous. But folks, we're up on it. There's as Chris mentioned earlier in a post, it starts next week, so it's here. But it's the Oklahoma Homestead Rendezvous. It is at the Southeast Expo Center in McAlester, Oklahoma, September 27th and 28th. And of course, Glory Hills Homestead will be there, I believe, speaking on Saturday. So folks, make it out for that. But there's also going to be tons of vendors. There's speakers both Friday and Saturday. There is planning to be a kind of like a farmer's market, seed swap. I think some live animal trading, some of that stuff. Is a little bit of everything going on there, as well as live entertainment and lots of education. And under 80,000 square feet of roof is the Southeast Expo Center, and it is a fabulous facility. Tickets are $10 per day at the gate. And if if you want to volunteer, I'm sure that Chris would be more than glad to have your help. And you can reach out to her at either on their Facebook page at Oklahoma Homestead Rendezvous, or you can email her directly at okhomesteadrendezvous@yahoo.com. And she can hook you right up with all that information as far as what she needs. And I'm not sure, Chris, if you're still with us, if you're still taking vendors or not. But we did try to send one your way Sunday. But it's going to be a good time. Jack Dyer said, looking forward to meeting you both, David and Holly, at the rendezvous. Jack's a real special guy, and him and his wife are a great couple. And Chris said, they're still accepting vendors, so and that type of stuff. So that's going to be coming up again, 27th, 28th, and that's really kind of going to wrap this up. Y'all guys got the honorable spot of being the last of our speaker series for the rendezvous.
So awesome! It was an honor. Thank you guys so much.
We appreciate that, and we're looking forward to it. It's going to be a great time, and you're going to get to hear more of David and Holly's story, and more hacks, more details, more on how to do that stuff. And so definitely put that on your must learn list, because I don't know anybody that doesn't need to save money on their homestead. So and their sense of community and their God-given purpose is definitely coming through, and they enjoy sharing that. So go over and check them out at Glory Hills Homestead, and give them a like, give them a subscribe, and all that stuff. And while you're at it, hit the like button if you haven't already tonight. If our content was valuable and you like it, share it to your friends, tell people about it, hit the thumbs up and all those good things. Not so that we can grow our channel, but we can help get this message out and help get this type of content out to more and more people. And so, bro, honestly, this is kind of nice. Oh, yes. Always remembering our hashtag. He's giving it to me. Our hashtag is Stronger Together. And truly, we are stronger together. Without the community and without each other, it's just going to be a miserable failure going forward. it was something I had before you handed me that. I forget what it was I was going to say. Actually, what I was going to say is there's stuff coming up throughout the country. I know in
Yep.
October, to include Homesteaders of America. I know they've got theirs in October. There's several in Tennessee. There's some others. I don't have dates right now. We are beginning to get dates for 2025 already. To include Oklahoma, the Okie Homestead Expo. It's the 21st and 22nd of March, Mays County Fairground, Pryor, Oklahoma. So get that on your calendar. As of now, that's the first one up for the 2025 year. So and that's the one I can remember off the top of my head. But anyway, so that's kind of we'll be. Are we gonna? Yeah, Tuesday, bro. Next Tuesday, or we. What did we say? We were going to do. We'll be back on next Tuesday.
Yeah, we'll talk about it, but we'll be back on for a little bit next Tuesday, mostly to do a last minute, broadcast to promote the Oklahoma Homestead Rendezvous for one last time. I'm hoping that we can get Large Family Homestead and Red Dirt Rooster Road on alive with us. Now, don't hold me that because I hadn't even talked to them about it yet, but we're trying. They know that we wanted to do something to get together, so I'm hoping that we can put that together. But anyway, for those of you who are in earshot, I just want to say to you that one more time, as Jack had reminded, that Chris still needs vendors, and if you want to volunteer there, all the volunteers would be very, very helpful. And you got something else? See?
Yeah, volunteers. They get a T-shirt, they get a meal, and they get their entry and one ticket. So one entrance. So if you come and volunteer, and if you can do it on Friday, do it on Friday. If you can do it on Saturday, do it on Saturday. If you can do it Thursday, Friday, Saturday, all the above, the help will definitely be welcome.
Right.
So
right.
Love that.
That's pretty much it, as far as I know.
Oh, Jack said he'll work on red dirt.
Thank you, Jack.
Jack.
So anyway, again, if you're also in earshot of me and you happen to have a channel between now and then, shout out the Rendezvous, shout it out often, and do help us out to promote the Rendezvous, because the success of the Rendezvous and other things that are like that are extremely important for us growing this community. And as we've said before, we are stronger together, and that we believe that the homestead community exemplifies the solutions to the problems that we see going on locally in our state, in the United States, and in fact, around the world. So, bro?
Hey, well, it sounds like it's a great show. Any parting comment or thought from y'all before I sign us out of here?
Thank you guys for letting us be on, and we're so excited to meet you guys at the Rendezvous and meet everyone else, and we're just really looking forward to the event.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, and looking forward to meeting y'all in person. Yes, absolutely. Well, listen, we close out every episode, and it's kind of hard to do when we're remote like this, but we close out every episode with prepare for the unexpected and keep it local. So usually I'll say the first half, and then my brother will say the second half, because otherwise we talk over each other and it cancels out and all that good stuff. But anyway, folks, again, until next Tuesday, y'all, God bless y'all. God bless all of y'all that came in here tonight and sat with us, and including my cat that just jumped up on my lap. But anyway, that's the unexpected we have to prepare for. There we go. But anyway, folks, listen, things are happening in the world, and things are happening here. Be prayerful to God for our country. Be prayerful to God for each and every person in our community and in our country. And with that, as we always say here on the Farm to Table Direct Show, prepare for the unexpected and
keep it local.
All right. We'll see you.
See ya.
No humans were harmed in the production of this podcast.